2010, delegates indicated they wanted to hear more from our apprentices. In combination with one of our 3 conference themes, diversity, we are pleased to bring you a panel of female apprentices.
And these apprentices are here today to talk to you about their journey through the trades, what they've experienced, why they chose the trades, and to share some ideas on how to make the workplace more welcoming to women apprentices. So I want a special thanks, I'm not sure she's in the room, but a special thanks to Valerie Overend from the Saskatchewan Women in Trades and Technology for organizing the panel. And I want to call up Kevin Evans from BC's Industry Training Authority. He's agreed to facilitate the panel, so thank you for that, Kevin. And I'd like to invite him and Erin, Tracy, Carla, Sienna, and Sarah to the stage.
Okay, all right, you do it.
Boys with the girls.
Thank you. No microphone? There we go. Now I do. I'd like you to, if you would, cast your mind fast forward to a moment in time in the future. It's a beautiful day. We're on a construction site right here in Regina, and 2 carpenters are on a coffee break, and they happen to be friends, and they also happen to be women. And they're saying to each other, you know what I read today? Back in 2012, there were 24 men for every woman in the trades. 24 to 1. What were they thinking back then? Isn't that ridiculous? And the other one says, no, you gotta be kidding, you're pulling my leg. So that moment in time, ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest to you, needs to be our destination as an apprenticeship community. It's no longer just a matter of equality of opportunity or social justice, as we heard from our speaker this morning. It's increasingly becoming a matter of economic imperative. So what are we up against? What is it going to take for us to get from 2012 to that point in the future and that moment in time? We're going to hear the perspective of 5 women who are living that journey right now as to how we might chart a course if we as the apprenticeship community believe that this is a priority, so that we can see one day the kind of representation and the gender balance we have in this room here actually on our job sites. So I'd like our apprentices and our journey persons to actually introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about them, what trade they're currently in, and what attracted them initially to the trade. Tracy, do you want to start?
I'm Tracy Bujaczek. I'm a 3rd-year welding apprentice. I've been welding for 5 years and recently just started my first industrial pipe fitting job.
All right.
What initially attracted me to the trades was I was in my first year of university at 25 on student loans and realized that was the wrong path for me. So I looked into apprenticeship, and I've always liked working with my hands, making things. I've never been afraid of physical work, and chose welding as my career path.
All right, and you can call your own shot in terms of jobs from the rest of your career. Sienna.
Hi, my name is Sienna Delorme. I'm a 2nd-year carpenter apprentice.
What attracted you?
What attracted me to become a carpenter was the physical work.
And how's that working for you?
I like it.
Are you any good?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay. Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sarah Lewis. I am a volunteer carpenter. I have a family there. What attracted me to the trade was
Can you pull that mic a little closer? There you go. Yeah.
I wanted to build a house sometime in the future, and I'm almost there. I'm a single parent, trying to provide for my family.
And 4th year, you're almost there. You almost got that ticket. Yeah.
I attempted my IP, and I got
Tracy. Erin, pardon me. Sorry, Tracy.
I'm Erin Vaughan. I am a journey person automotive service technician. I've been in the trade for 6 years. I got my ticket 2 years ago. And just a year ago, I opened my own business, Kinetic Auto Service. And it is pretty much the best thing I've ever done. I got into... Thank you very much. I got into the trades mainly because I wanted to have a job and make sure I could pay my bills every day, and cars always break, so I knew that would do it. And I could do it anywhere in the world. Just turns out I stuck around here.
Do you want to do a little plug for your business? You're in Regina and...
Yes, I'm in Kinetic Auto Service, 1500 Winnipeg Street.
Carla.
Hi, my name is Carla Milleker, and I am a journey person plumber. I also have my general gas ticket and my domestic gas ticket. I've been in the trade for roughly 6 years. I started in Alberta, working for family. Then I'm like every girl has to go to university, so I went. That lasted a year and $15,000 debt, and now I'm back to being a plumber. And yeah. Well, I got into the trade because of family. I have an uncle who's a journeyman and 3 cousins, so they kind of just pulled me in, and now that's what I'm going to do.
Excellent. Terrific. All right. So, 97%, I think it's actually 94% actually. It was 98% were men in the outside of hairdressing and cosmetology and culinary and so forth. And for about 35 years, I understand, it was about 98%. Now it's about 96%, but still, it's about 24 to 1. Why is that? Thoughts?
I think it's mainly that it's not marketed to women like it could be. If it was marketed to women as a career, that they could either become a nurse or they could become a mechanic or a plumber. But I think oftentimes it's just marketed to men, and they're expected to be able to do the physical work, and women can't. And I think we can do anything just as well as a man can. Sometimes you just need a longer wrench.
Okay. Thank you for that, Erin. I think that's the quote of the day, isn't it? Sometimes you just need a longer wrench. Any other thoughts? Is it just marketing? Is that all we need to do, is put commercials on the air showing role models as women as tradespersons, and we're going to see more women in the trades?
I think that it has to be brought out into schools more. Like, I've gone through the apprenticeship, I've been through this, and actually it was just a year ago that I got involved with SaskWITT. They contacted me, but that was the first time I knew about them throughout the 6 years of my apprenticeship. Like, I wasn't aware, even in high school, like, no one ever came in and was like, hey, you should go for a trade. Like, no one ever approached me and was like, so do you want to be a plumber? Do you want to be a mechanic? Mm-hmm. Like, that was just from my perspective. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are role models important? And have any of you guys got role models that inspired you to do what you've done?
Starting out, not really, but since I've been involved in the trades, not so much role models, but support of other female tradeswomen has really been helpful, just because you are isolated a lot of the time, and you don't get to speak to a lot of women on the job, and so groups like SaskWITT or other women's committees, they're just a nice place to not really have to explain yourself all the time. You just are who you are, and you just kind of get each other. And
right.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word isolation. Is that something that all of you can relate to at some point in time? Sarah, you're nodding your head. Yeah. When has that happened to you, where you felt isolated?
When I'm on a job site, being the only female there is, you're narrowed out. So you have to prove yourself. And then after that, they take you
you had that feeling then every day where you've had to go into work and you've dreaded going into work because you've had to try and prove yourself again?
Well, I've had experience as well. I didn't get along with coworkers, so I just went with it and dealt with it every day.
And the tension was the gender difference?
I would say so because I was part of the crowd.
Right, right. Okay, others of you have had that feeling of isolation, and is that something that we need to talk about with young women so that they go into this with their eyes open? I mean, it is not necessarily an easy path. And by talking about it too, maybe we can make it a little less isolated.
I don't know if I ever really felt isolated, but very often I felt like I was being treated differently because I was a woman. However, it seemed, like looking back, it seemed more like I was being treated differently mainly because they thought I could get hurt, or, you know, they don't want to give me the really, really terrible tasks because I'm a woman. But, you know, I think it was just more, they were just trying to save me from having to do something really terrible, you know. But, you know, I think we are treated differently, and that's just what it is. Like, when you're walking into a business that's just men, you know, a woman walks in and they're just like, what do we do with that? You know, that's just what it is.
Get a longer wrench.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to prove yourself every day and show them that, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and I can learn it just as well as the rest of you. And, you know, I think if men and women can just learn to work together and respect each other's differences, then it would be an entirely different world. And that goes with any career.
The question about welcoming workplaces is often in the literature, as they say, and is much discussion. How do you define what is a welcoming workplace? What are you looking for in a workplace? And I think maybe, Erin, you were just touching on it when you talked about respect and so forth, but can you elaborate a bit more on that? What does it look like for you?
Has a girl's bathroom.
Or just a clean one.
All right.
I've talked to an employer trying to find jobs for these girls, women in trades, and they didn't have a washroom there, so they didn't get hired.
So you're not kidding? No. No. Okay. Right.
That's a guy who can just move it over when they want. Sorry.
I guess they could.
That's what I was told.
I was the first woman hired at a shop that had been in operation for over 40 years, and so walking into there was pretty intimidating. The only reason I believe I got hired on was because there was a SaskWITT member that was our assistant production manager and was fighting for equal opportunity in the workplace. And so otherwise, I don't know if they ever would have hired a woman there, but...
Right. Let's actually use that as an opportunity to talk about SaskWITT, because not everybody's from Saskatchewan, I know, too bad. But what is SaskWITT?
SaskWITT is Women in Trades and Technology. They work in getting young girls interested and active in trades and technology careers, and predominantly male.
And providing support as well?
Yep.
Yeah, so,
Yep.
Okay.
There's also a SaskWITT, and they have coordinators at each of the SaskWITT campuses, and they help career counseling and stuff like that. I spoke to a WIT coordinator at SaskWITT when I was looking into trades.
So in a sense, are you guys, well, you are kind of now role models yourselves for young women who might be considering that, a career in the trades. What advice, what's the most important advice that you think you could give to a young woman today who's thinking about following the path that you guys have taken? I know, big question.
I think the best advice is to just go in and do your best, and don't listen to any of the garbage that you hear around you, if there is any, and, you know, just prove yourself that you can do it just like anybody else.
And I also think coming into it, you have to come in with the open mind that you are just like one of the guys and you can do the work exactly like one of the guys. Just because you're not a guy, you still could work better or work faster or do whatever you have to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on that, Sienna?
Yeah, go out there, get dirty, and have fun.
Have fun. That's what Linda Duxbury was talking about this morning again. Yeah. Sarah, Tracy, anything?
I always found that I was my own biggest obstacle because I would believe what I would overhear, and that would get in my way of believing I could do something, you know?
Wow. So how did you turn the corner on that?
Well, just through experience and gaining confidence in my own work and showing people that, you know, I'm perfectly capable of doing whatever.
Right. So the advice would be don't listen to some of your inner voices which are just echoing what other people are saying. Yeah, right. So what I'd like to do now that you've got a chance to know these women a little bit better is to invite you to either ask them questions or perhaps share your own experiences or your perspective on what we need to do to be seeing more women in the trades and bringing down whatever obstacles they may be. And as you're getting ready with your questions, one of the obstacles that you often hear about, and I think actually, Erin, you mentioned it in terms of an employer feels this, is that the trades is physical work. And because it's physical work, women just are not physical. So how do you overcome that stereotype and that concern?
I get a bigger wrench. Seriously, like you really do have to think around things because you're not physically, because it's like it's not just a stereotype. Like generally, women are not as strong physically as a man, oftentimes. And so, well, okay, I'm not, like I'm small, but like that's really what I'll do. I'll have to think around a different way to make things work, you know.
But you hear that all the time. It's always work smarter, not harder, right? And you just have to learn how to make your tools work for you. You just use your brain.
Okay. Sarah?
Well, I go out there and I try my best at what I can do. You know, there's that thin white line between men and women, right? So if I need the help, I'll ask for it. If not, then I will try what I can do.
What do you mean by the thin white line between men and women?
Well, you know, there's a difference in strength, right? So, you know, I'll just go as far as I can go, and, you know, if I need the help, I'll ask for it. If not, I will try it.
Right, right.
And really, it's not worth hurting yourself to lift something. Really, it's not. So, you know, your pride will suffer slightly by asking a man to help you, but really, in the long run, it's worth it.
You were laughing at that. Why was that?
If you're lucky, there's another girl you can ask to help you.
Okay, words of wisdom we're hearing. Ray.
Yeah, a comment then a question, and it's really about perception of all as to what construction workers are and how they represent themselves on the job site. I do know that I've been an employer of women for a long time, and I do know the way that they were welcomed into the workforce when I first started hiring them, where there was not washrooms for them, and we had to insist, as an employer, I had to insist that a washroom was there for them. I also know about some of the ways that some of even our executives and that would Google at the girls when they came in. And we're all familiar about, you know, the guy sitting on that steel girder whistling at the girls as they walk by. So I really would like to know whether or not that you feel that the perception of a woman in the workplace from a sexual point of view has changed over the years, or do you still feel some pushback in that area?
Mm-hmm. So I guess the question is, do you, how do I put this? Ray, do you want to try that again? Because they're looking a little puzzled by your question, and I don't think I want to go here.
Typically in the male world, the male is rather, how would I say this gently? Rude and obnoxious when it comes to women, especially, you know, and the construction workers always had that perception of being that type of person.
Keep digging, Ray.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I am not one of them. Matter of fact, I'm a strong defender of women's rights. However, I do know that that perception is alive and well in some communities, and I wondered whether these women have felt that
Gotcha.
on the workplace.
Okay, does that help?
From my opinion, I think it's the way you present yourself on site. You show up to site, and if you're there to work, you shouldn't be stereotyped by any other male. Like for me, myself, I personally dress down on a work site, so that does not happen. Because I'm sure my husband would not be happy if I had 10 guys whistling at me all day or whatever. So that's me personally. Like, 'cause when people see me outside of work, they're like, holy, you clean up quite nice. Like, you're actually a girl. But then there is still the odd female you see on sites that are there for that reason, who wear the short pants, the short shirts, that when you bend over, you do see everything. And it's just different girls see themselves different. So in my opinion, I don't go for that.
And I really haven't had much trouble. Coveralls are not sexy.
I think the work culture has changed too. Harassment policies are always in place and usually held to a high standard. And women generally know their rights as well.
Hopefully there's, yeah. Thanks for the question, Ray. Yes.
Hi, Terry Weymouth, Canadian Auto Workers, and 24 years ago I was like you. So congratulations to all of you. I like what I see here and what I hear here, because I hear from the newest apprentice who's a little bit scared of the whole process, to the journey person who's very confident in what their capabilities are. This is the same that would happen with any male that was sitting out there as well. There's this whole transition that's happening. One is between I'm a woman on a job, and one is I'm an apprentice on the job. It's very hard when you're the only person out there to know what is what. And are they treating me this way because I'm a woman? Are they treating me this way because I'm an apprentice? I'm happy to say with the harassment laws, women advocates, things like that, things have really, really changed since I started my apprenticeship. And I was one of the, I think, first 5 in Ontario to ever get their license. So.
And how was it for you?
Pardon?
How was it for you 24 years ago?
Oh, you don't even want to know.
Was it tough?
No, that was really tough. Really, really tough. And then, because I started out in construction, and I was not unionized, then I went to Canadian Auto Workers in 1993, and I was unionized. So I saw this whole world of day and night of how I was being treated as a woman and the equality. Now what I find the biggest hurdle that we have right now is we're still being labeled. We're being labeled non-traditional. It's been 24 years. It is not non-traditional for me to be working in the workplace. We need to take that kind of language out, because that itself is making me different. This is just a job. That's what I hear that's happening on this panel. I congratulate you on that. That's what's coming out loud and clear. There is nothing about being an electrician that requires me to be a male or a female. Nothing about the job. You just base it on your skills. If you can do the job, you should be able to go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Ecker. I'm also an electrician. I have been for 10 years. And what I'm hearing a lot of on the panel, I know some of these women personally. I'm a member of SaskWITT. I hear a lot of questions posed to the women individually about what they've had to do to make their way through the apprenticeship program. I would like to know from the women what they require, have had, or would require from the employers in the form of support. What do they need? Because I've been from one extreme to the other, an employer who does not support women in trades, and an employer who does, extremely. And it has made all the world of difference to me. So I would like them to tell everyone here, the employers, what they need from them.
Great, thank you. Good question. Who wants to start off? What looks like good support? What do you expect? What should be the employee's Bill of Rights?
I think really all that's necessary is just respect, and that, you know, we can be looked at equally. You know, honestly, I think that's all it is. And I know that if I was to have an employee, hopefully one day I will, that's what I would do, is I would just treat them with respect, train them and I wouldn't even look at them as one gender or another. That's really what it comes down to, is this needs to be looked at as just people working, like not women working in a non-traditional trade or whatever else. So
was it you, Erin, or maybe Carla at breakfast this morning was saying that what you really appreciated was that in that situation where there was a conflict with a male coworker, that the foreman, that was you, Carla. Do you want to tell that story? Because that speaks, I think, to the support that you receive on the job site.
Well, the story I said earlier at breakfast when we were talking was there was a conflict on site between myself and a drywaller, and I'm the type of person just to tell the drywaller off. And my boss heard me tell the drywaller off, or my journeyman at the time, and he pulled me aside and was like, you know what, Carla, he's like, you shouldn't have to deal with that. He's like, next time he comes to you, just come to me, and he's like, I'll take care of it, because that shouldn't be your place because you're a girl. So I was like, okay. But then I still took care of it, so that was mine.
Other thoughts, Tracy?
I think flexibility is a big issue for women because we have babies and families, and a lot of the time we're single parents, and you need that flexibility. And in the trades, you do work a lot of long hours. Trying to find childcare for a 10-hour shift is pretty darn hard sometimes. You know, it's just really important, you know. If your kid's sick, you need to be with them or whatever, you know. Flexibility is pretty huge, I think.
And have you had both experiences where you've had employers that have given you that flexibility and also employers who haven't?
No.
No.
But, like, I myself, I don't have children. I have a stepdaughter that we have shared custody with, but we've managed to make it work. But I know just from speaking to other tradeswomen, it's a huge deal, or when they get pregnant and get laid off, or, you know, how to work with pregnancy and apprenticeship training and all that.
Right.
You know, it gets complicated.
Okay, flexibility. Sarah, Sienna, any thoughts on what support you'd like to see, or if you had a message you'd like to give to employers about what it's going to take to make women feel welcome in a workplace and to retain them on that workplace? Or Carla, did you have something else to add?
For me, I found that my journeymen and everything were very supportive. It came to the management aspect, because as a female, I was always underpaid compared to the males who were in my trade. And it just took me till February till I became a journeyman to be at the same level as the guys, because I was already at the point where I'm going to walk if it's not what I'm supposed to get paid. And that's a big thing I find, like talking to other females too, it's where you're lower paid also because we are a female. And that isn't right as well.
I think it's also against the law, for what it's worth.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, Andy?
Yeah. Andy Clevin, I'm the Director of Training in Vancouver for the largest single sponsor of electrical apprentices in Canada through our joint training committee. I have had the absolute pleasure over the last 7 or 8 years since I've been in this role to work with some of the most fabulous tradespeople possible, and they were women who have made their career in like an industry which people have always thought as being just for male only. And one of the previous speakers said it just so perfectly, that there's nothing special about our trade that means you have to be one big, hunky male to actually make it. Like ours is a type of the trade where you think with your mind and work with your hands. And the ways that some of these marvelous people have had to make it in this man's world, like some of them have done it really giving men back what they're dishing out, treating them just like they actually were a man, and just calling him to task. There's others that are sort of working in this man's world by just being very quiet, and they're all doing well too. There's others that are just trying to make it, that just trying to do things on an equal footing, and each of those ways works out well, like it's worked well for these people that have come up through our system. They're teaching in our programs. They could be managers somewhere. They could be just journey persons. But yeah, it actually is a challenge there. it is a shame that women still have to prove themselves, that they feel that they have to do everything perfectly. Men don't think that. You know, the guys actually go to the job site, they just say, "Hi, bro, how are you doing?" You know, they just go and they do their jobs as well as they can, but they don't worry about having to prove that women are equal or better. And it's due to a number of different things. Like we have a lot of dinosaurs throughout various trades from coast to coast, throughout various jobs, and hopefully that will change. I have some granddaughters that I would love to get into a trade and have actually them be treated as equal partners. But just keep doing what you're doing, and the day will come. One of the things, though, that I'd like to say is that we are not totally equal. Women have children. It is a fundamental right. It's a fundamental way that we actually propagate our race. Like we listened to the speaker earlier about how we need to have 2.1 children per couple. Yet we have a system where we have women in trades that are, for various reasons, that they can't work because they're pregnant, and it may be that their company has said, well, oh, you're pregnant, like you're way too frail. You know, you have to actually go home. There are women in trades that can't get their EI credits in to be able to draw mat leave. There's something wrong there. Somehow, we as a system have to figure out ways that there is some sort of way that women can get these credits for hours, because it is a barrier to actually women staying in the trade when they have a single pregnancy or multiple pregnancies over a period of time. We have to do better. And yes, we are equal when it comes to the type of work that we do, but there are things that we have to do to make it easier and better for women to stay in the trades.
Thanks, Andy. And just a thought, just if you let me, Valerie, this talk about men and women are equal and women have to show they're just as good as the men. Do you think there's actually some things, this is kind of a rhetorical question, a bit of a puffball at you, where women are actually better than men? It's okay. Well, wait a minute. I know you guys are all hating me right now, aren't you?
You're on the wrong panel.
You probably should, yeah. We probably shouldn't answer that.
Well, listen, I don't know whether these are myths or stereotypes, but I do hear from some employers that they like the way that women think. That sometimes the absence of testosterone allows a certain intellectual process to unfold that works very well for them. You're still not, you're going to let me out to hang to dry, aren't you? You guys are bad. Okay, Valerie, rescue me.
Yeah, they have to face those guys tomorrow, too. They're not going to say anything. They're just thinking it. I want to talk, I'm wondering if Sienna and Sarah, if you could talk a bit about something that was brought up yesterday by Randall Morris from SIIT. And he talked about the construction careers programs and how they have job coaches for their students, for their apprentices. And I'm wondering, I think both of you got training through SIIT. I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about maybe give an example or two of how a job coach might be a support, or how a job coach was a support to either of you in your apprenticeship.
Well, when I used to be, well, I started off with women in trades, and through my apprenticeship, I've also had a job coach, and well, Shelley McNabb, she was a job coach at one time, and she was, she supported me through, finding work and showing up at job sites when, I needed some support, and, just being there.
He was saying yesterday that really is the fundamental core of what they do at SIIT.
Yeah.
And you would agree with that? Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't had a female job coach yet, so I wouldn't mind to experience that, I guess. I have a male job coach, and sometimes I just don't, I can't find myself to open up as if I wouldn't mind if there was a female out there.
I could be your job coach.
There you go, there's an offer. Yes.
Hi. First of all, congratulations, ladies. My name is Paul. I'm from Hamilton, Cotaigats. I am an Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program Coordinator with our local school board there. So I'm looking at things from a different end. We talk here about retention and engagement with our apprentices. We think it's got to start at a much younger age. So our ministry has tasked me for next year with special programming to help market and educate our female students to get into those non-traditional trades. So my question is twofold. First off, did any one of you have secondary school incentives to get into the trades? And second of all, can you help me if you were in the high school, what you would want to experience to see, to tours for courses or whatever that would educate you a little bit more clearly on what the trades are like, or to entice you into it?
Great. Good, thank you. Any ideas on that? I guess there was two questions there. The first is, did you have any experience in high school that kind of helped you to get on the path? No, you're all shaking your head. Any of you have? No? Okay, well that's...
Okay, so if you can take yourself back then to high school, what would you like to see? What could we deliver to our high school female population to entice them and show that the trades is viable for everybody? What would it take, or what would you need to see?
I know when I was in school, in high school, there were courses available, but only the boys were taking those classes for the most part. They had, of course, the home ec for the girls and whatever else, shop for the guys. And they just seemed to kind of just steer us in those directions. I think maybe if we had been steered in other, or given the opportunity to just, take whatever we wanted, pushed in that other direction, maybe it would have been easier.
Were girls prohibited from going into the shop?
No, they weren't prohibited. It just didn't look appealing because it was just a bunch of boys in those classes. It seemed like a bunch of meatheads, and why do you want to spend an hour with them?
So do away with the meatheads in Hamilton, and you're...
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
More mentorship programs, maybe? Women ones?
Okay.
Did you get that, Paul?
In the programs?
Yeah.
Maybe female teachers?
I find our biggest obstacle in there is first the stereotype of the trades, but second of all, it's guidance and parents. Your guidance counselors and the parents are kind of keeping the not just the girls, even some of the boys away from those trades. So if we had more mentorship programs, having women from the trades and talking to that would help as well.
Even female teachers in those courses would be helpful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bringing in speakers too, maybe.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that, Sarah?
Bringing in speakers.
Yes. And role models. If you had seen people doing what you're doing, perhaps you might have thought earlier that, hey, I can do this too. Okay. Oh, sorry, I've had my back to you. I hope you haven't been waiting there long.
No, I haven't. She may have been here before me. I'm not sure. But Leah Murray, QP Local 116. I work for the University of British Columbia, and I'm a Red Seal joiner. So congratulations on your journeys. Very rewarding to become a tradesperson. I just wanted to make a comment on the training aspect in the school system. I grew up on Vancouver Island, and it was mandatory that all the boys and the girls in grade 8 took woodwork, metalwork, sewing, cooking, drafting. That's the only reason that I was exposed to woodworking. So I think that that's something we need to explore across the country. Get people interested and exposed to it early. they can see if they like it and move into that path, and if they choose not to, it's valuable life skills that they learn. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yes.
Hi, it's Shelley McNabb. I'm with SIIT. I'm the Joint Training Coordinator there, and so I indenture through our career centers and try to, I was a job coach at one time, and so I know Sarah, we indentured her through my office. But one of the things that I find as a training coordinator is when apprentices go to school, and particularly women who are single parents, and I think maybe both Sienna and Sarah are single parents. So if you can imagine going to a 7-week program and maybe being a single parent and having to figure out childcare on half your salary as a level 1 apprentice would be a huge challenge. So my question is, how did you survive that? And particularly to the single parents, did you have family supports? It must have been extremely difficult. And what can employers do to maybe help out? Imagine a world where an employer might pay for your daycare, for example.
For me, I relied on family, friends to help out. Also, it was school. My kids are a little bit older, so they went to school same time as me. When I wasn't, when they did have their days off, then they would just go to family. So, but yeah, it is kind of hard to find when my kids were younger, it was hard to find daycare for them on such a low salary.
And you had family, fortunately, that could provide you with that support. And not everybody is as lucky.
Yeah, fortunately, and I didn't have to pay them, so that was a good thing.
What was your experience, Sarah?
I had my mom. She's been, my support through this all. I've had a couple children during my journey, and it turns out they're sick too, right? So I gotta, try balance my time, I guess, with work, and I guess I'm not too sure where I'd really be without having that support.
Well, I just want to say that's amazing, and congratulations to you both and to all the panelists for being mothers and being in a workplace that sometimes is not very welcoming. And I guess we got to talk to more employers about putting in more supports, and hopefully the employers in Saskatchewan are going to catch on to that, as Dr. Duxbury was talking about earlier. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Colleen Norman. I'm from St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm here on a scholarship from the Provincial Advisory Council on the Status of Women through the Office to Advance Women Apprentices. I have a question for you guys. Just wondering, how hard was it for you to get your first job as an apprentice? Like, what were some of the barriers that you guys came across before you actually got your first job as an apprentice?
Weren't you saying, Tracy, that you just walked out at 9 o'clock in the morning and by noon you had a job? Yeah. So you didn't experience the barriers, really. Okay. What was the rest of your experience in terms of your first job? You got to get that job to be an apprentice.
I didn't have any barriers at all either. I got hired over the phone, so that was mine. They didn't even meet me. They didn't. All they had was a resume, and I was hired over the phone. Wow. So I didn't have any issues, and I've been with the same company for 5 years. So, wow. Yeah.
I just went into the shop I took my car to. I knew nothing, and I said I'd like a job. They had a posting, and he was hesitant at first, and he thought about it for a couple of weeks, but he called and said, if you want to come and try it out, come in for a couple of weeks, and if you like it, you got a job. So, yeah.
Wow. Sienna, Sarah?
I didn't have any barriers, not yet anyways.
But in Newfoundland, maybe it's because they're in Saskatchewan and things are booming so much, but they're booming again in Newfoundland.
Up back home too. So.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Great. Well, that's a great experience, and that's also encouraging, I think, for young people, whether they're women or men, that there are jobs out there to be had, although you do have to be knocking on some doors, and there is some foot leather that you have to expend
Gotta be
along
a
the way.
little bit persistent.
And being persistent, that's right, marketing yourself. Norm?
Yes, I guess just as a little bit of a follow-up, I'm really encouraged to hear that the barriers are coming down, and because, and maybe just to take a little walk through time, in my earlier years when I was a union activist, I actually sat on an interview board, and when we were hiring apprentices, and this in the Naval Dockyard in Halifax, we have about, at that time we had about 1,500 tradespeople, and I can still recall how we did have a female apprentice in the machine shop, and the foreman who was on was not that foreman, was on the interview committee with us. He sort of passed word along that, listen, I already have my token female, and I don't want any more. And so, fortunately, the people on the panel were progressive, and the female apprentice came in, and she aced it. I mean, she was the top candidate, and we, of course, hired her. And but those barriers had that, that could have been a barrier in the sense that had those people listened and feared the ramifications of that other manager, that woman wouldn't be a tradesperson today, and she's done very well in her career. And later on in the 90s, because that was actually in the 80s, in the 90s, I actually put my hand up to participate in a gender sensitivity training for those 1,500 tradespeople, and we did it as co-facilitation, male, female, and myself and a female welder did most of the training, and it was really interesting how one story of this female welder. Our building where most of our tradespeople are is about the size of a football field, and they had when they built it, they actually had smaller washrooms for the women around, but they were using the one that was closest to where her work center was for the cleaning supplies. The cleaners used it. So she tried and tried and tried to clean it up. Eventually, she was working one Sunday, and she just took all of her gear out of her locker, and she went up to the men's locker that was closest. And she arrived 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure she was there before everybody else, got a newspaper, put a chair by the door, and in come the guys, and she's there reading her newspaper. Hi, Carol. Oh, hi, Bob. Hi, Carol. Oh, hi, Frank. Well, by noon, that washroom was open. And she had tried for almost a year.
Oh.
And I might also add that she and her husband were both welders, and when you took something into the welding shop, you went to her before you went to her husband, because she was a far superior welder. So when you talk about the women being superior in the trades, I think it's probably like the men. Some are better than others, but in this case here, she was really a superior welder. And but I think that what's important too is that after that training, when we told people that they couldn't put up their centerfolds and all of that kind of things back then, a lot of the males came to me privately and said, I'm so glad you did that and said that, because you professionalized the workplace. And I think that over the years, women have done that. You've made it a more respectful workplace, and I think that dimension, because what I used to say to them when they would like to put up their pictures is say, well, would you put it in your living room or your kitchen or your bedroom? And they'd say, well, of course not. And I said, well, why not? And they'd say, well, because my mother, my daughter, or my wife would say, they'd have my head, or would see it. And I'd say, well, who do you think these women are that are coming in the workplace? They're somebody else's daughter, mother, and wife.
Right.
So, but I think that things have evolved a long way, and because now it's interesting, because people are saying when the cutbacks happen, they say, well, can't we find some employment equity hiring money to bring more female tradespeople in, or visible minorities and so on, because I think it's actually going the other way somewhat, but I think that the role modeling is still something that we really need far more of you so that the little girls out there can say, when you say you can be anything you want, they won't have these blinders on that prohibits the generally traditionally male occupations.
Norm, thanks for your comments. Thank you. And I've got my eye on the clock, and I think we've got time for one more question. Over to you.
So I know we've touched on it very briefly when we spoke about flexibility, childcare need. I have two questions of mine. The first one is, you know, out of the women who are on the panel, how many have have worked for more than 2 or 3 employers would be my first question. The second, if you've been looking for jobs, and I've heard some of you haven't looked for a long time before you got hired, but was the issue of, you know, the desire for having children ever came up in the conversation? You know, did you feel discriminated against because of your desire of having a family? And do you think, like, in this market, and obviously Linda Duxbury this morning said, you know, this is not the labor market from the past, but in a more difficult labor market, do you think your experience would be the same? It's easy to say I'm not facing challenges when there's such a huge need, but in a more difficult labor market, how would you see yourself going through that? So these would be the 3 angles I'd like to explore here.
And the rationale, Jean-François, for the first question of how many employers?
It's more, I have this odd feeling listening to the panel that they've secured a job and they've been in it for a couple of years.
Right.
And so they haven't really had the opportunity to compare an employer to another, their practice, whether they're discriminatory.
Okay. So have any of you had multiple employers over the years? Yes, Erin, you've had how many?
I've had 3.
And you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Yeah. I learned a lot about what not to do when running an automotive repair shop.
Okay, well, that's part of an apprenticeship too, isn't it? Yeah. And the rest of you, you've all had pretty steady employment? Yeah. So the second part of the question related to whether you were ever asked in the interviewing process whether or not you intend to have children, and was that a factor in whether you were hired or not?
Yeah, for my first job, I was asked if I had children, and I came out and straight out and said, "Well, yeah, I have children." And he asked me, "Well, if I had daycare for them and stuff," and I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I'm here right now."
And did you get hired?
Yeah, I did get hired.
And despite the insensitive questioning in the front end, how was the rest of it?
I think for the first 2 months, every day I wanted to quit.
So that should have been a clue to you that
Yeah.
perhaps this wasn't the best employer. Yeah, because that too is against the law for what it's
But
worth.
I stuck it out. Turned out to be the longest I've held it. I've been in, like, I was with them for 11 months. So.
Right.
And I plan on going back.
So the third part of the question related to things are pretty good in terms of it being a seller's market right now, as Linda Bujaczek was saying. But if things were not quite as good from the employee's point of view, do you think that you would be experiencing something different from employers? I know it's kind of a hard question to answer if you've not ever been through that. I guess who knows? Okay. Well, the forecasts are that you're going to be in demand for some time to come, so hopefully you don't have to go through that. Just by way of closing, I'd like to ask, are there any comments that you wanted to make when you came up on the stage here that you haven't had a chance to make? Any closing thoughts?
I think I'd just like to thank the women who were before us, because that's why we're here. We're able to have this opportunity because of them.
I think that's a pretty appropriate note to wrap up this session. So thank you very much for being so brave to come up here, and all the best of luck and every success in your career. Thank you.